Well, convicted murderer and rapist, that's Thabo Bester, is expected to join proceedings virtually this morning in court as all 8 co-accused appear at the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court today. Bester's partner, on the other hand, that's Dr. Nandipha Magudumana, her father, Zolile Sekeleni, Chief 4S prison warders, that's Sinohe Matswara, Tieho Makotsa, Anastasia Janssen, CCTV technician, Tebogo Dipolo, and Budima Semula, all face charges of aiding and abetting Bester's brazen prison escape last year. Now, the couple was arrested and deported from Tanzania last month, but reporter eNCA's senior reporter Ronald Masinda and Bulelani Jones are following the story for us, joining us live, of course, to give us those updates. Right now, though, of course, my colleague Ronald Masinda joining me. And good morning to you, Slee. I mean, the day has finally arrived. It is the 16th of May for the very first time since, of course, court proceedings had began. We're seeing all 8 accused in the dock. Of course, albeit Thabo Bester appearing virtually.
Certainly so, and we are inside the Magistrates Court where, of course, we have already seen that Dr. Nandipha's father, Zolile Sekeleni, has arrived, as well as the legal representatives of the other co-accused in this matter. We actually also did see the convoy of Dr. Nandipha Magudumana, as well as Anastasia Janssen, who are being kept in Kroonstad. That police convoy arriving this morning in Bloemfontein from Kroonstad. Is about a 2-hour drive, and of course we understand that today, for the first time, all 8 accused will be appearing in the main matter. Now, you did mention, of course, that we are seeing Thabo Bester appearing virtually from the Kgosi Mampuru Correctional Facility, and of course that is because we saw an application last week from the Department of Correctional Services requesting the Bloemfontein Magistrate Court to allow for Bester to appear virtually. Now, it does seem like there's an effort by the lawyers to try and shield Zolile Sekeleni from the cameras, but you can see, of course, that he is the only one of the accused who has been released on 10,000 Rand bail, and that was following an agreement by the state as well as his lawyers to allow him to be released after he had the murder charge also dropped in his matter. Now, he has very strict bail conditions that he needs to adhere to. He has to report to the Port Edward police station where he resides once a week. He also, of course, cannot leave the area of Port Edward without alerting the station commander of the police station, as well as the investigating officers of the particular matter. And so you can see, of course, that Zolile Sekeleni being shielded by the attorneys as well as his family. But we also know that, of course, given the bail applications that we saw unfolding last week, the state has painted a picture in terms of the roles of each of the accused in this matter. We know that in terms of what came out of court, it is alleged that Zolile Sekeleni hired the vehicle in which transported Katlego Bereng's body inside the Mangaung Correctional Center. We know that Zolile Sekeleni is alleged that he hired that vehicle around the 27th of April from the O.R. Tambo International Airport. That vehicle was then driven to Bloemfontein by Sekeleni, and then it seems it was handed over to accused number 1, that is Sinohe Matswara, who then, of course, proceeded to load Katlego Bereng's body after it was claimed by Dr. Nandipha, allegedly, and a fake funeral held, which is where the handover of the body then took place. That vehicle that was hired allegedly by Mr. Sekeleni was then transporting the body of Katlego Bereng into the Mangaung Correctional Center to be a decoy, in essence, for the escape of Thabo Bester from the prison last year on the 3rd of May 2022. So today what we are going to see, we have been advised that there is a possibility that in fact Zolile Sekeleni may get new legal representation today. His lawyer may be recusing himself, but when I also had an opportunity to speak to his current lawyer this morning, I door-stopped him and he said, look, his client is in high spirits, but that he didn't have any further comments. Jogomane is going to try to show you Zolile Sekeleni, but you can see that there is a huge effort to shield him from the cameras. He himself is also trying to hide himself from being photographed here inside the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court. We are expecting the court proceedings, of course, to start just after 9 a.m. this morning, but in that main matter, like I said, Dumelo, we are expecting quite a quick postponement in terms of all 8 accused being in the dock, as well as Bester appearing virtually, meaning that Nandipha's father, as well as Nandipha herself, won't be in court for long either. Once that main matter is postponed, we will, of course, see the continuation of the bail applications of the 5 co-accused in this matter. But I just want us to take a listen to a sound clip of where we had an opportunity to speak to a legal expert with regards to the virtual appearance of Bester today and whether there's anything peculiar about it. Let's take a listen.
Procedure in terms of Section 159B and C of the Criminal Procedure Act makes provision for the postponement of matters through audiovisual link, especially when it's practical. And also, when you expect a case such as this, I can imagine when there's public outcry that this would be in the safety of both the accused as well as the public, eventually to have the proceedings done through audiovisual link.
Well, Asli, I want to also just touch on, Dr. Nandipha Magudumana for a moment, because the last time we saw her appearance in court, her legal representative had mentioned that they have chosen, at the advice of their client, Nandipha Magudumana, to rather reserve her bail application at the moment, saying they had evidence to ventilate that is quite sensitive, that would impact, they believed, bail proceedings from their part. Now, promising that on the 16th of May today, they would then, of course, be appearing in a court. Can we expect to see Dr. Nandipha Magudumana now proceeding with her bail application today?
That remains to be seen, Dumelo. At this point, you can see, like I said, that we do have several of the defense lawyers, including that of Dr. Nandipha. We have Advocate Ndlowu, who's right next to the other lawyer for accused number 1, that is Sinuhe Matswara. They are in court as well, ahead of the proceedings, of course, like I said, trying to shield Zolile Sekeleni here from the cameras. But what we saw transpiring last week was her lawyers telling the court that, look, we were prepared to begin with our bail application, but we have received some kind of new or crucial evidence, information that is possibly going to affect how the proceedings unfold in terms of their application for their client. So what they then told the court was, look, we're not going to apply for bail at this moment, but we're also not abandoning the bail application. What we are asking the court is that we want an opportunity to be able to ventilate this new information that we've received. We want to see how it's going to affect the application for bail for Dr. Nandipha, and they're asking the courts then to reserve her right to be able to apply for bail at a later stage. So meaning we don't know at this point when exactly that bail application is going to take place. What we do know is that the likelihood is that it's not going to be launched today, because when we postponed her appearance last week, the agreement was that the lawyers were then going to inform the court as to when they plan on applying for bail for Dr. Nandipha. And so today I think we may see some some emotional scenes perhaps inside court, because this will be the first time that Dr. Nandipha is also reunited with her father since their arrest. They have appeared at least twice before in court, and at that time you would remember that we had Dr. Nandipha making an effort to try and hide her identity. We saw her father in the dock comforting Dr. Nandipha, and I don't know if you would remember the conversation we had with Mr. Sekeleni a couple of weeks ago, when we were still looking for Bester as well as Dr. Nandipha, who we know, of course, had fled the country at that point. In my conversation with Mr. Sekeleni, he had told me that he didn't know where his daughter was, that he was worried about her, that he didn't know anything about what was happening in Johannesburg in terms of the information, of course, that's come out about the relationship between his daughter and Bester, saying that he didn't know that his daughter was in a relationship with a convict. But we now know, of course, that at some point we know that Dr. Nandipha's father, Zolile, and his wife were living in that Hyde Park mansion, that Hyde Park hideout, where Bester essentially was hiding in plain sight. They were moved out of that Hyde Park mansion soon after, or just before, in fact, the escape was implemented. We know that they were moved to an apartment in Cora Lane, but they did spend some time in that Hyde Park mansion. Also, we have done an interview with somebody who was very close to Bester at the Mangaung Correctional Facility, who spent a lot of time with him, who told us, of course, that a lot of the time Bester would confide in him in terms of the criminal activity he was doing behind bars, but also, of course, the kinds of visitors that Bester would receive. One of those, we understand, according to that confidant of Bester's, is that at some point in 2019, Zolile Sekeleni, Dr. Nandipha, and her mother did visit Bester allegedly on a family day inside the Mangaung Correctional Center. So at some point we will, of course, be unpacking and ventilating a lot of what we're hearing inside court and seeing exactly what kind of evidence the court has against these accused. But today, a very significant day, being the very first time that we're seeing all 8 accused appearing in this matter.
All right. Well, colleague, of course, as we expect and anticipate what will occur in court this morning, I'll leave it at that with you and come back to you soon as there are other developments. You can see that the lawyers and legal representatives of, the accused in this saga, shielding in the best way they possibly can Zolile Sekeleni, the father of Dr. Nandipha Magudumana, who had taken a seat on one of the benches, just, of course, next to the legal rep, standing, just covering him, and himself, of course, doing the best he can to shy away from cameras at this moment as he waits to enter into court. And for the very first time, as Leah just mentioned, alongside his 7 co-accused in this case. We'll come back to Slindelo Masakane and Bulelisuti Jones as soon as there are other developments around the court case.